Alrighty, well, welcome everyone. Glad that you're able to join us today. We have the great honor of having Alba Muñoz, who joined AltaMed in March 2023 and serves as the manager of the Undergraduate Medical Education with the AltaMed Institute of Health Equity. Her team supports the various pathway programs that mentors pre-licensed learners such as social workers, pre-health, pre-med, and medical students, to name a few. Ms. Munoz is the daughter of a Mexican immigrant born in East LA and raised in Pomona. Ms. Munoz comes to AltaMed with over a decade of experience in teaching community college sociology and pre-health professional development at the Keck Graduate Institute, academic and health career advising, guiding aspiring providers to provide their application writing materials, interview preparations, and providing experiential community opportunities to help students prepare themselves for the rigors of admission. Prior to joining AltaMed, she served as instructor and assistant director of the postbac program at KGI, and before that, she was at CSULA, where she served as the health professions advisors and guided postbac students. She's a champion for students who serves to support many historically marginalized students pursuing careers in healthcare and pre-health dreamers. Where she also goes by the nickname Pre-Med Tia on social media. So we're glad that she's able to join us today.
Thank you so much, Ruben, for that wonderful introduction.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I'm just super impressed that there are so many people on this Friday evening who are here actually wanting to learn more and hear a little bit more about my thoughts regarding how you can best prepare to connect with mentors. I'm going to give you some tips, and this is really truly coming from a place of wanting you to grow more and be able to thrive and to be able to find those best mentors for you, because I know they exist and they're out there. So I prepared a little bit of some slides for you all, but I wanted to also thank the Pre-Med CC for putting on this amazing opportunity and space for so many other pre-health students out there. It's a very unique space, and I'm so glad that they provide all of these resources to many folks. So I just wanted to thank them and for also having me here. So before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about me. I love pictures. I didn't always love pictures, and I have a little story about that later that I'll share. So a little bit about me. I am the daughter of Mexican immigrants. I'm also the eldest. I have a younger brother. We're almost 7 years apart. I was born in East LA. That's where my parents met. So I consider my hometown being both East LA, Boyle Heights area, and Pomona. That's where a lot of my mom's side of the family live. I am first gen to graduate high school. I actually helped my mom get her GED. And I'm also the first in my family to seek a 4-year degree. I did a post-bac program. One of the pictures that I'm wearing a master's hood, that was my post-bac graduation. I am a career changer, so I had to do a post-bac to get into my graduate program, and I'm happy to share a little bit more with you about that later. I am the proud mom of a almost 13-year-old. My husband and I also, in addition to our son, we have lots of plants and trees. We are true gardeners, heart to heart. So I've been gardening since I was a kid, and that's something that my parents always told me, that I was always in the garden or cutting my grandma's plants or trees or whatever it was. I was always getting dirty. So nothing has changed. We're a huge animal family. We have 2 dogs, a tortoise. We do have some like stray rabbits and cats that come into our yard, and squirrels. So we love nature. A few of my hobbies, I do love reading a lot. I try to read a lot. I also like to journal. I also enjoy my sleep as well too. I'm always found either napping in the garden or napping at home. So I want to share a little bit more about my journey with you. Um, it's a very special one for me because I am a career changer. I was trying to figure out what was going to be best for me to be able to best serve my community and how can I help make an impact in others. So, as I mentioned, I am a three-time Cal State LA alumnus. I am first gen. I only applied to two schools for college, and it was back then when it was a paper application. I applied to Cal State LA and the University of Laverne. I had no idea what I was doing. Um, I chose to become an educator. I was inspired by a few educators, but I didn't know what role I would actually play. And life has a very funny way of guiding you sometimes on what you're supposed to be doing, and it's up to you to actually try to find that purpose. Um, I would have never imagined that this August I'll be spending almost 14 years serving pre-health students from a variety of different points in academia, from community college, undergrad, post-bac, and graduate school, and now in a healthcare setting, which is I would have never dreamed of doing that. And now I get to work with amazing physicians and healthcare providers. I also get to manage some grants. I work with scribes. I do a lot of different things. I run our summer program. I'm learning a lot of the different administrative pieces that go along in healthcare, which for me, leaving academia was a very tough thing to do because I had no idea that educators can actually prosper in different areas or different spaces. But here I am now, and it's been an incredible journey. I teach sociology at a community college. I've been doing that for almost 12 years now. I did teach pre-med professional development at Keck Graduate Institute. And so what does that look like, or what is that exactly? It's basically this type of curriculum and walking through individuals on the process on how to prepare their medical school application, their PA application. So helping to guide them on how to best conduct themselves in a professional setting, how to prepare for their interviews, how to prepare their personal statements, how to connect and network with others. And because I had the fortunate opportunity to have a great mentor in grad school who taught me how to break down these pieces and who actually showed me what a true mentor is supposed to be, someone who advocates for you and to help guide you and still allow you to still be yourself while you're still owning your purpose and your own journey. So that was pretty amazing experience for me, and so I'm hoping to continue to pay it forward through mentorship. And so I wanted to first start off with a few things here. You have to think about who you are and you have to know who you really are. So, a little fun fact, my father was in construction, he led a team. So, he taught me a lot of things that have to do with like fixing up your home, like we put together a window, things like that. So I have a very quirky style to me in a very interesting perspective in life. So if one door closes for you, my dad taught me like you can open a window or make a window or build a window or a doorway. So that's kind of how I've learned to navigate my life. And so you have to think about like, where are you at your core, and that where is your foundation? And if you're not there yet, that's okay. There isn't a specific timeline that you need to know who you are or you need to know exactly what you're doing. You'll get there. And you have to also know that you have what it takes to get to where you want to go. And because I am a career changer, it's okay to change your mind as well too. Oftentimes I have students who tell me they want to change career paths or whatever the case may be. And I tell them it's completely okay to do so, as long as you are happy. And my role really is to help guide you and provide you as many resources as possible, or to connect you to people that may have the answers, because I don't claim to have all of the answers. So um, I'm socially awkward. I am a nervous public speaker, which is pretty funny, as I chose to be an educator and you're in front of the classroom all the time. So um, my mentor actually taught me that it's okay to be yourself and it's okay to be nervous, and as long as you are true and authentic to yourself. So I carry that with me, near and dear to my heart. So I share that with a lot of my students and scholars as well too. So fun fact, I'm also an introvert. A lot of people say, I don't believe that you are. I think I'm a trained extrovert, but I do like to recharge and spend a lot of time in silence, napping or gardening and reflecting, and spending a lot of time writing as well too. So those are some things that I use to recharge. I'm sharing all these pieces with you because at some point in your journey, you're probably feeling scared to want to try something or to even attempt to do something. So for me, being a nervous public speaker, and I'm scared to do it, and it's funny because I love doing this. So once I get the nerves out, I'm totally fine. And it's because you care about something so much, and it's okay to be scared. I think it's appropriate. It's because you really want to invest in this. And if you're a socially awkward person, like, you've come to the right place. I'm going to give you some tips on what to do. Um, some things that I've learned along the way is to work on your self affirmations. It sounds very silly to do at first, but trust me, they only work if you do them. It's like when you go to the gym, like, you're working on your fitness, it only works if you're consistently doing it. So for me, I tell myself, like, I'm going to be fine. I already know this information, or I've done this a million times, or whatever it is that you think that is going to help you and help motivate you is what you need to hear. So you need to start off and convince yourself and believe in yourself, most importantly. So boost your self-confidence. I also write my self-affirmations. I have journals everywhere. Like, they are literally everywhere. So I write them down. I put them in my phone. I'll sometimes text myself. It's really funny. The other thing too that I tell my students, dress up nice. Like, when you, like, look your best, you're gonna feel your best too. And that's okay if you don't have a lot of clothes. You'll start to build your wardrobe as well too. And there's lots of resources online for you to, like, find guides or what to do, or ask a mentor really. But most importantly, be prepared in knowing who you are, owning up to your story. It is very unique to you. Of course, as a pre-health students, there are certain common things that everyone is working towards, and there is going to be some similarities, but your actual experience in itself and how you process that information is actually going to be very unique to you. So I want you to remember that and um, own that. And whoever you are, or what you've experienced, it's completely okay. So I also want you to remember to be committed to yourself. Now, I have a very interesting way of teaching. It's pretty, like, unorthodox or quirky, so to speak, but you got to trust me on this. So I'm giving you all this to help you set your foundation for what's to come next. So I have also some book recommendations here. I've heard a lot of students tell me, like, how do you fight imposter syndrome? What do you do? Or what are some resources? So I actually do recommend some books there. And then one of my alums, I was telling them about working on their self affirmations, and they actually gave me the Teal book. And so I have it next to me all the time, and I try to write my self affirmations in there. And it helps guide you along, like, some and prompting you. So I completely recommend it. It's like about $6. So get yourself one of those, or if you like to freestyle or vlog, whatever it is, continue to work on those self affirmations. They will come in handy as well when you are preparing to talk to people who you might be nervous or scared. Um, or as you are preparing for interviews. A lot of people freak out about interviews, and it's going to be okay. You cannot be nervous. It's okay for you to be a little bit nervous, but don't let the nervousness get the best of you where you're going to be blinking out, not on your A game and things like that. So all of these things will help connect and we'll connect in a little bit. So as I proceed. And I see some questions coming in. So please do put in your questions and I'll do my best to answer as best as I can. So now, we're talking about how do you connect with people, or you might think that you already know how to do this, but for some of us who are introverts, we have to cover the basics. And especially like if you're someone who's like good at making friends, I think there's a little bit of a difference between making professional connections with others that gives us additional anxiety. So maybe it's just me, or maybe it's because I'm first gen, but building rapport is absolutely critical. And because you're going into the health professions, it's something that you want to start building upon those skill set. And also, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more it becomes seamless. So it makes people very scary when I say, how do you build rapport? And they're like, no one's ever asked me that. So ask yourself this, like, how is it that I uniquely build rapport with others? And for those of you who are shy or introverted, it's really just practicing the art of small talk. What do I mean by that? It's you're at the bank, if you still go to the bank, or you're at the grocery store or Trader Joe's, wherever you're at, practice talking to the cashier, and practice talking to people or commenting on something. That's the art of small talk. And for a lot of us who are introverts, we just want to go in and get our stuff and get out. So I completely understand. But again, you're going into the health professions, and the health professions is truly about people. And yes, it's about science and all of these other things, but it really comes down to you're doing this for people. So you'll get there. And so I'm going to give you some of these tips to help you along the way. So I've had people ask me like, okay, Elba, so how does this process even begin? Like building rapport. So um, I'm going to try to simplify or break this down for you. It's really about creating connections. That's it. There's no other secret sauce. There's nothing else involved. It's just creating connections. And so I want you all to think about and reflect for a moment here. What are some ways that you build rapport with others? Do you start off with a smile? Do you say hi? Um, Maybe you haven't really reflected on this, and now's a good time to think about that. So we'll pause here for a second because I do believe that I need to give you some space to digest. So think about it for a second. And if you want to share in the chat as well, too, I'm not sure if you're able to do that feature and share. You can go ahead and put that in. Okay. I'm going to move on here for a little bit. All right. So there are, of course, some vital skills, and depending on who you ask or what you look up on these resources, on AI or wherever you decide to choose, everyone's going to have different opinions about this. And what I have reflected on this, it involves a few things, a very, small handful of things that are really important. So part of you is going to have to try your best to actively listen. Not just listening. Actively listening means you provide your divided attention. And it's something that I know that it's really hard to do nowadays because our society has shifted into a culture of wanting to be entertained. Our attention span is short. We're multitasking. A lot of us watch our favorite shows while we're scrolling or on the iPad or talking to someone else. We're multitasking. Our society has shifted away from doing a few tasks to multitasking all the time. So it's really hard to do. I try to practice it myself, and it's still hard. Like I'm on my phone or I'm checking my emails or doing whatever. So you have to practice actively listening and also paying attention to people and looking at them literally, is the other important piece. But some other important pieces that I notice is having empathy, understanding where the other person is coming from, and being still yourself. A lot of folks say, "Well, I don't know how to be myself." You know how to be yourself. I think sometimes we overthink things when we're nervous, and that's just because we care or for whatever reasons. But the goal here is to find similarities within our shared experiences. So, what I mean by that is when you're connecting with others or talking to people, find things that you have in common. And so you'll be surprised. More people have more things in common with each other than we're actually, you know, thinking about. So I did talk a little bit earlier about establishing your foundation, but now when it comes to connecting with mentors and professionals who or people who you see yourself in the future or doing those particular professions, you want to think about who is it that you want to build rapport with? Is it like faculty member or physicians or PAs? Like think about that. Like actually give yourself some time to reflect. Write these things down. My style of teaching is asking guided questions because I also want you to critically think and reflect in these pieces. And at the same time, think about timing. And I share this with young folks because sometimes we're not sure if timing is okay. And some people will tell you like there's no better time than the present. And so, but of course, if these are folks who are, let's just say physicians, and let's say you're their scribe or whatever the case may be, you want to ask them an important question, but you don't want to ask them like right before they're going to see their patient or right before they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And that's what I mean by timing. So when things have settled, you also want to make sure that you read the room. And so because I am socially awkward, I have to think about all these things and process and make sure that, okay, is the timing okay? Or just even ask if you're not sure, just like, oh, do you have 5 minutes? I'd love to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. I hear a lot of folks say, do you have, I have a quick question. And whenever someone starts off with that, I know it's not a quick question, but I feel like they're nervous. They also not sure what to say or they're feeling, uncomfortable. So I tell them like, it's okay, relax, take a deep breath. I can typically tell when folks are nervous and I try my best to be mindful of that and tell them like, it's okay. I'm a safe person. It's okay to be yourself and I will communicate like if now's not the good time, but we can set up a time to do this. And so most people are nice and will tell you that, but some folks may not be aware of that other folks, or they might have forgotten what it was like to be their age, or they might have had a different experience with mentors, and that does happen as well too. So I will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit later. So going back to the actively listening, um, sometimes folks when you're nervous, they repeat the same question over and over. So this is where I tell folks like, if you're nervous, first try to like keep that at bay. If you forget easily, which is okay, write things down. And so this way you can reflect back on like, okay, they did answer these questions. I have notebooks like all the time. So they're everywhere. I have pens everywhere. I write things down all the time. So just some tips along the way to help you. The other piece when you're connecting with folks, um, it's okay to ask questions. And if these are mentors or professionals, it's okay to ask for feedback, but obviously not on the first time you meet them. So I will talk a little bit more about this. And I just wanted to introduce some of these concepts and lay down the foundation for you. So, okay, here's where I feel a lot of folks can potentially relate. So how do I actually talk to a potential mentor? What do I say? What do I do? And a lot of folks like have what I call like they make their eyes like all big when when they're nervous or anxious. And I can typically see like, the big wide eyes. I want you to be cognizant because if I were to record our like first initial conversation, you'll probably see that you're also like freaked out. So relax. This is why I tell folks like to practice what you're going to say or write down bullet points. That's totally okay. I would do that a lot, actually. I still do that a lot. Like if I'm going to meet someone, I try to think about like, okay, what is the objective of this meeting? Let me just put down some bullet points so that I don't freak out or blank out, or at least try to make it less awkward because I'm very self-aware of this. And for a lot of my introverts, like they're probably writing down as many notes as possible. Like, what can I do about this and how do I go about it? So most importantly, I want you to create a successful elevator pitch. I call it an elevator pitch. A lot of people call it different things. But if you can start practicing and mastering your elevator pitch, it's going to make things a lot smoother. So the second thing I want you to do is create a game plan. And when you create a game plan, it makes it easier to follow. Now, I don't want you to do like a step by step, like, okay, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to drive there and X, Y, and Z. That's not the type of game plan I'm talking about. I'm just trying to get you to understand like what is the overall objective, or what do you hope to inspire from this meeting, or what do you hope to potentially accomplish. So think about those pieces, and that will actually help you to process and also get used to the idea of what you're going to be doing next. And I hope some of these things are helpful. Now, for me, let's say I was going to interview someone super important or someone that's like a high level leader. What I typically do if I've never met them, um, I go online, I look for their LinkedIn profile, or I go to their school's website um, to look up their profile picture. Most professionals will have a professional headshot photo. And I do this because my brain will tell me, like, I've already seen them before. Therefore, it's okay to talk to them and be yourself. It works. I've shared this tip with a lot of my alums, and they said that it works, especially for their like interviews for their health professional programs. I tell them most of them are going to be faculty. Go to the school's website, look at their photos. They're all going to be like nice people. So you have to tell yourself that and believe that because they want to get to know you as well too. So I'm saying all these things for you to prepare your brain for those types of interactions. Okay. The other thing I want to tell folks is it's okay to fangirl about people. I fangirl all the time when I'm at work because some of the people who I work with, they're like speaking, like they're huge, like keynote speakers at conferences, and they do so much in the community. I get to watch it live, and so for me, like I start fangirling, especially like when some of our physician champions are on the news. Like then my family's like, wait, don't you work with them? And so I start to fangirl even more when I see them in real life, and they're just amazing people to work with. So it's okay to fangirl. Know that people are still human, and they want to get to genuinely know you. Okay, now I want to help give you some tips on how to prepare your mini elevator pitch. I typically tell students you want to have two, a mini elevator pitch for like the small talk or small like networking events or conferences and things like that. And you also want to prepare a longer elevator pitch. This is for when you have an interview or you're at an open house for a med school or whatever the case is, so that you already know what you're going to say. And it doesn't have to be verbatim. It's just have these talking points in your mind so that you become less nervous and it flows smoother. Okay. And you also don't want to sound rehearsed either. You want to definitely sound genuine about this. So I provided some tips here. You're welcome to take a quick screenshot, or if you want access to my slides, let me know. I'll give you my email address. I'm happy to share them with you.
We'll post it on the site too.
Oh, perfect. That'd be perfect. So, okay. Now, for your introduction, if you're at a place where folks are going to be engaging with each other, they will typically prompt you to say, like, okay, tell me your name, hometown, undergrad, are you pre-med, pre-PA, whatever the case is. I'm going to advise you to say your status or your occupation in an interesting way. The goal is to connect with people, and you also want to be memorable. So instead of saying like, "Hi, my name is Elba. I'm an educator. My hometown's Pomona, and I work with physicians." It sounds kind of like, blasé, right? Okay, let me try again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elba Muñoz. My hometown is East LA and Pomona. I help inspire people to be their greatest selves. That sounds way better. People might be like, "Oh, what does she mean?" So I tell folks like it's okay to be a little mysterious, a little bit, because you can also elaborate in the next piece, right? So you also want to talk about your goals, or I try to inspire as many of my students as I can every time I'm in the classroom. That automatically tells people like, okay, classroom, like she's some sort of instructor or trainer or whatever the case is. My fun fact is that I've played the violin since I was 12 or whatever the case is, right? The goal is your fun fact is to be used to connect with people. And a lot of my introverts start to get nervous, like, I don't have a fun fact. I'm not interesting. I'm sure everyone is interesting. Um, you just have to think of something that you want to say to use that as a connecting point with others. Music, um, food is a very common fun fact as well too. Like if you're a cook or whatever the case is, I'm hoping some of these points could help you to articulate your thoughts better. And the more you do it, the more you get better at it. And so, um, yeah, you just have to just try it out. Okay, here's the lengthy one. So this is the one where it's okay to dive a little bit deeper and go a little bit more in depth. Um, the mini elevator pitch is just to be succinct, quick introduction, a little bit about me, and then your fun fact. And the lengthy one is where it's okay to talk about your goals, talk a little bit more about your journey. But again, keep it succinct. If you're someone who like tends to talk for a long time, then it becomes like you can go into rambling, and that's where folks get more nervous and they circle back, say the same thing and over. So you want to try not to do those things. So again, I will share these things with you
Can I just
for you
add
to
one
have.
thing?
Yeah.
You guys have all these things called cell phones and y'all have cameras and stuff. Like if you're not taking it and practicing your elevator pitch um in front of a camera and looking at it again and also having like people critique it, this is not something you magically learn. You gotta like work at it. And if you haven't done it before, if you're like a shy person or haven't like spent that time doing it, you're gonna fail miserably at it and you're gonna be really nervous. And so I always say like practice it, record it, have other people take a look at it yourself, see what you like and you don't like. And part of our like leadership is you interview to become a leader here, but after you're a leader, you interview other people because you learn so much more in other people that you become a better interviewer. So like these things are like all not like 30-second TikToks. Like you gotta like work at it and you gotta practice at it. And it's not easy. Like elevator pitches and making quick introductions or going to a conference and literally having like 15 seconds in front of someone, it's hard. And so don't take it as a, oh well, I'll get to it, or I'll just like see a TikTok and I'll learn it. You got to do it. Sorry.
No, please don't apologize. It's they need to hear from multiple people. So I think it's great. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about where you can find mentors. I get this question asked a lot. Like, Elba, where can I find mentors? Here, this amazing like pre-med CC, Mi Mentor is also a great place for you to meet mentors and other people. Sometimes people think mentors are their elders or people who are older than them. But mentors can also be your peers. So you can find mentors during your summer internship opportunities, workplaces, academia, and conferences. And so one thing that I tell my mentees is when you connect with someone, try your best to stay in touch. That doesn't mean like you contact them every day or every week or every month. It's just you want to kind of practice maintaining relationships and making sure that you stay connected because at some point you never know, like you're going to be working together, you might need to call upon them for, a referral or whatever the case may be, or just you might just be end up working together. And so I tell folks like don't be shy once you meet those connections, follow up and making sure that you stay connected with others. So I have some tips here for asking for feedback. I have a lot of my students that say like, okay, well, when's a good time to ask for feedback? Obviously not on the first day that you meet them. I tell folks to think about timing. And so they ask me like, what do I say or how do I go about this or whatever. And you can prepare questions in advance, especially if you're meeting with representatives from a school that you want to go to or other folks. I tell folks just prepare like 3 questions and listen carefully. So if it's like at a conference and you're at a booth or a table, make sure that the question's not already being answered or things like that. And that's how you're practicing like active learning. Obviously, there's a lot of information on the websites as well too. So, and for me, I learn more about people based on the questions that they ask. And so I tell folks all the time, take notes. And so do your best to remember what was explained to you. And this is why I tell folks like practice being calm as well too, because it can be exciting and nerve-wracking. So I do have some questions here because I know some of you are thinking about like, now when I meet with a health careers advisor or a program director, like what do I ask? And that's a good question because for me, you need to have some context about some things that you need to be able to ask or try to obtain. I tell students the first or second meeting, it's about building rapport. So you may not get to like plan out your entire academic journey. At least for me, I spend the first, couple times with students actually genuinely getting to know them. Like, what are their hobbies? What do they do for fun? And you'd be surprised. I've had some amazing stories from students that share with me, and I say, okay, tell me about your background. We just have like, a conversation. And so I get to a point where I start guiding them. And for me, the most important piece is rapport, because after rapport, we build trust. And so I typically share my experience with them, like how much experience I have. This August will be 14 years. It's okay to ask folks like about their journey because that's how you'll learn about their experience as well too. So I'm not going to go through all these questions here, but rather I wanted them to be here for you to kind of have an idea of some questions to ask. And so the thing is also about some advisors and my advising colleagues, not all of them are going to have all of the answers, and that's okay. And so this is why it's good to have like, a lot of mentors as well too. Or if they're not able to answer a question, ask them if they can refer you to someone. Like let's say I don't know enough about community colleges. I'm going to say like, hey, do you remember we had that webinar with Huben? Like, why don't you reach out to him and see if he's got some other connections or other things like that. So I want to spend, I think we might be running out of time, but I do want to spend a little bit of time about what I'm calling unproductive encounters. So this is when you might meet a mentor or an advisor or counselor and it becomes an unproductive encounter. So let's say you're trying to build rapport and you feel like it's not clicking or they're saying things that are maybe not vibing with you, okay? I want you to remember the first steps that I was telling you earlier on how to set your foundation, know who you are, affirm yourself, be confident. This is where you can come from a place of curiosity. No one's going to ever fault you for asking questions. And so if someone says something like that doesn't sit well with you, ask them. Like, I'm curious, like, what makes you say that? Or can you provide me an example about what you're meaning? this is why human interaction is so important. And when you have this type of dialogue, you can try to understand. And sometimes we don't know what's happening. We just see what's at the surface. They might be going through a bad day. And this is not to make excuses for people either, but we don't know what's happening to people. And I think that's where the empathy comes in as well too, and understanding that people are people. Maybe they've had a newborn and they're not sleeping through the night. I remember those days. And so they might think that they're okay, but they're not processing that or what's happening, or they might not be aware of what they're saying or how their word or tone is coming off. And so you're taking it as like, oh my gosh, they're discouraging me, or maybe they really are discouraging you. So you want to get clarification on that. If that does happen, don't dwell on that. Find another mentor, because I hear a lot of folks that they tell me like, I've had a really bad encounter with advisors. Tell me about it. I've had it too. But for me, I would always think like, okay, well, that's them. I'm gonna still do my own thing or find someone else that will help, because I knew that there will be other doors or other opportunities that would happen for me. I just knew that. So I just wanted to say that note about that, because sometimes folks are surprised about these types of encounters. And I'm sorry that if it happened to you, and there will be other people that want to help you. So this is why they have like resources and things like this for you to connect with people and others. Okay, so I promise I'm almost done here. So I have a few of these preventative tips, right? So, and as a summary, so know who you are, own your story. Again, practicing these self affirmations. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And most importantly, don't be discouraged. Find someone else that can help you. And if someone doesn't have the answer, find someone else. Research it yourself. You can DIY this. Mentors do exist. And I promise you, you will find that mentor that also resonates with you too. And so they're out there. You just have to put yourself out there and just keep trying. And so I always like to conclude with a little bit of advice. And so I actually have a jar of encouragement from my former postbac students and grad students. And so today I pulled out, you've worked hard to be exactly where you are today. So I felt like that was very fitting for what we're talking about today. My goal and hope is that some of these tips will help you along the way. And it's not a, it's not like a, I guess like all the answers for what to expect, because humans are humans and there are so many different encounters and people go through a lot of things. But I hope some of this will help at least prepare you for what to do next when you have these types of encounters with others. I have my contact information here for folks that wish to stay connected with me. And I'm not sure if we have enough time for Q&A.
Yeah, we have till 6:30. So, so this is actually, I find this question very problematic, and I'll tell them why. If you don't mind, can you share one of your mentees' inspiring beat the odds stories? And I would just say don't leave somebody else's dreams. Like your story is your story, and I don't know, that's just me, but you want to answer that question?
My goodness. So the question is a mentee that I've had that has beaten the odds.
Yeah, what's their inspiring story?
My goodness, like how much time do we have? Because I have so many. I have like alums in the thousands now. So off the top of my head, I'm gonna say I have a alumnus who's, I know students want to hear numbers all the time. 2.2 science GPA, did a post back with me. They are soon to graduate residency, and it's I have so many of these things, and they're here in the States by themselves. Their parents are in another country, and they're an only child. So if they're listening, they know exactly who they are. And it's not so much about, like you said, Hubert, it's not about like living other people's stories. If this is what you want to do, you need to keep going. It doesn't matter if it's going to take you 5 or 10 years or whatever, time is still going to pass. And therefore, you need to find a way, ethically, of course, to get there, and find the support that you need. And it's going to be okay. And I tell students all the time, like, if you've gone through a lot of things, go to therapy, work on your wellness, have mentors, have support systems that are going to be there because you're going to need them. You can't do this by yourself. I always say it takes a great village to send one person to medical school. And it's everything that goes with you, like those not so good experiences, all those challenges, all those obstacles. And they're they're there to prepare you to get to where you need to go. I hope that that helps.
Yeah, and I would just say that I find a lot of pre-meds that are closet pre-meds, like they don't like they're really shy and quiet about it. And the problems you're going to run into is your first mentor in college, it's community college or the UCs or CSUs is or anywhere is that it's your professors. So if they don't know your story, then then it's kind of like it's really hard for them to mentor you and stuff. Most of your community college and university professors all minimum have a master's degree and most of them have PhDs. So they know medical students, they know physicians, they know all of these people. And it's like funny story for me is like one of my chemistry teachers like didn't know me but like knew that I was pre-med and stuff, but it's like, oh yeah, my wife is a ER doctor, and like if you like ever want to meet her and stuff, I was like, well, yeah, I've like worked for a few years, 6, 7 years in the ER, so I know a lot of ER doctors. But it was just like he kind of knew like who I was and I was pre-med and I like talked about it and stuff, but he just didn't know anything else about me. And he's like, oh, well, that's awesome. And another person that I know knew somebody who actually like we've invited to speak here a couple of times. And this one of my professors was his college roommate with this person who's a dean now at this medical school. And so it's like, my friend is the dean of this school and everything. And we went to medical school together and he actually like passed biochem because of me. And I was like, oh yeah, I know him. He's been here for like 3 times. And so like he texted him and anyway, so it just kind of became this thing. So like sharing your story with people is really important to know that like who you are and where you're coming from and what your goals and dreams are. And I know like the pre-med scene can be toxic, but like so what? Like, you can't I don't know. To me it's just I just this is something that I've always found is this is another question. Oh, you're answering all of them in the thing. Um, some of them are actually pretty good. How old is too old to pursue either an MD or PA? I don't know when you're dead. I don't know. Like, but realistically, like, I don't know. Do you want to answer that?
It comes down to your courses. Some med schools and mostly for the PA programs, there is such a thing as a course expiration. And if that does happen, then you just have to retake those courses. But first find out if that's the case for all of the schools that you plan to apply to before you start retaking all these courses. Um, I know some 40-year-olds who started med school when they're 40, and I'm going to have a soon to be almost 50-year-old mentee who's going to start applying to med school. So um, it's not up to me to say it's too old. It has a lot to do with your courses, really. And realistically, that's what it comes down to. So what else are you going to be doing for the next 10 years of your life? So, just make sure you follow up and do your homework to make sure that the schools that you're applying to that your MCAT is also current because it does expire. So make sure that you check in with folks and hear directly from the source. Don't go on Reddit or STN or so and so said this. I hear a lot of that or whatever TikTok. Sometimes I like to watch the TikToks from folks and the information is just way off where I'm just shaking my head all the time, so actually get the source directly or the information directly from the source, not secondhand. So that's my advice for that.
The only thing I think with medicine, age is going to play an issue, and it's going to be just the kind of residency you want to do. Like if you're in your 40s and you want to do neurosurgery, it's just going to be really tough because there's only like 100 spots in the country. And so that might be a little challenging, but I know I know a lot of like we had a 52-year-old medical student a couple weeks ago who came and spoke. So and the other part of it too has to do with your family and support and and what kind of like support structure that you have. Like if you're married and have 3 kids and they're not going to support you, I don't man or woman, like I don't care like if they're not supporting you, it's just going to be really hard. So but if you have a team that's supporting you, which I think you have an advantage, like the person Jen who was here, she's 52 or 53 and she's in medical school and like her husband's her biggest cheerleader and makes breakfast for her and lunch for her and does her laundry and that's great, if I'm fighting for that too. Um, so yeah, I mean, so I just think that, I'm probably this person's asking this question is probably like 27. So anyways, um, what this is another question. What is a good time to move on from an LOL writer from who's ghosting you? I would say after the third time, you write them a letter, you email them, and you tell them, hey, I'm doing this, 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 and then give them, I don't know, 2 weeks and try again another, and then give them but after the third time, after a few weeks, like just, and some people are busy, some people are out of time, and some people also like they're pretty shy and they might not want to write you a letter, so they don't know like how to break it to you, which I think like if somebody who is not like we write a lot of letters of recommendation, and there's some people that I could tell you that I will not write letters for, and I'm pretty open about it. But I'm also like somebody that's very open about those. And so, but some people may not be, and they just want to avoid you. Like, oh, if I just avoid them, they'll go away because they don't want to write you one. And I would just probably say you probably don't want a letter from them. What do you think, Miss Munoz?
Yeah, you can call me Elba. I for this, I don't have like a time number, like after the third time or whatever. Sometimes folks are just really busy. And I'm one of those people that gets like 50 emails in one day. So and I have multiple accounts. So keep following up. And for me, like if someone asks me for a letter and we have, rapport, I have enough examples, like I will be really honest with you, like I would love to, or um, these are some things that I feel like I'm not super comfortable in writing or putting that in a letter. And like at some point, being a professional mentor, you do have to have these tough conversations, and then like I'll tell them why if they want to know, because some people don't want to know like what they are. But that's only happened like less than a handful in my almost 14 years. For some folks, they might just be really busy, or I tell folks like when you send an email, it's easier to dismiss as opposed to like you stop by their office or you see them at work or whatever. I have a tip for this. I tell folks like holidays are a great time to connect with people. Like there's these digital greeting cards. So I'm old school. I try to send Christmas cards every year or a holiday card to people. And I think it's important to practice that. That's like the art that I feel like is going away with this younger generation is cards writing. I keep all of my cards. I have students who've written like thank you notes on a post-it. I still hold on to them. It's about connecting with people. And I think writing is something that is, I hope doesn't become a lost art where this is what you can use to connect with folks. I tell folks like, after your test, go talk to your teacher. Tell them thanks, like, hey, thanks for a good class. Even if you didn't like them, you'd be surprised. It probably has nothing to do with what's happening, and you're thinking they don't like me. But just say thanks for a great class. That goes a long way, or smiling. I pay attention to, like, when in person, right? When they stack up their tests, like who says thank you and who just like throws it, or who like stacks all their papers together. You'd be surprised. I pay attention to all those things, and um I remember like who says thank you, or please and thank you, and I feel like these are manners that go a long way, and that's part of connecting with people. But if you don't connect with people or try to build rapport, this is where it becomes awkward and people get ghosted, or students tell me like, oh, I was breadcrumbed by my professor, and I'm like, wait, what? So you have to start with those pieces. And so this is why I gave you those foundational pieces. You have to affirm who you are, know what you want. These are your goals. Go after them, so that if you get, I don't know, bogged down by some of these things, it's not going to be the end of the world. You're going to exactly know what to do, or find somebody else. Like, there can't be just one professor in the whole world, or one PI in the whole world. So it's up to you to build multiple connections, because you're going to need multiple letters at some point. So I hope that helps. It's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, I think three things are really important. Keeping a journal and your relationship with people, that's really important. If you're not somebody who puts a pen to paper, do it on your phone. Second, if you have a professor and you only like talk to them when you're in class, and then you come back in like 3 years and ask them for a letter, you're probably not going to get, but like email them follow-ups. You could preset your emails, I think up to a year in advance, wishing them happy holidays, sending him updates and stuff like that. And these don't have to be like, long. I mean, if it's long, they're probably not going to read it, but just like say, hey, or if you go to a community college and you've transferred, and if you're not willing to come back and talk to your school about transferring and doing a panel and doing all that stuff, don't expect a good letter. But if you're someone who like has transferred to like, I don't know, Berkeley, and you're about like 2 hours away from the community college that you went to, or you go back for like spring break or whatever, like plan to go talk to your school. Like those are all like really important things, relationships that you build with people, not just like, hey, thank you for my A, and see you in 3 years for a letter. But they would be more likely to do that for you, because even though like as a mentee you want to keep taking from your mentor, at some point they're going to get sick of it and they're like, wait a minute, like, so you got to give something back to them as well. And it's not like anything monetary, but it's just like thanking them, or obviously if they like doing that kind of stuff, like making yourself available. Even now, this really new invention called Zoom and everything else, where you could do a Zoom panel, like say, hey, I would love to come and like talk to people that I like went to school with, or I transferred from, and they would really appreciate that with you as well. I know like someone who is now a resident who comes back every year to their community college and talks, and has built that relationship, and he's used his community college letters for like medical school transferring scholarships and residency. So, um, this is another question they want to ask. I often find that potential mentors in research can sometimes be a bit dismissive towards community college students, undergrad like me. How do I overcome the predisposition that people have towards community college students?
This goes back to my foundational pieces about affirming who you are and knowing exactly like where you want to go. And for this particular question, and this is something that I like notice, and I'm self-aware. Sometimes we don't know. We might think like, okay, they're being dismissive, and maybe they really are. But I think sometimes like we tend to over dramatize things in our brain, that what is actually really happening, and just ask questions. Or if they have a TA or somebody else, like start connecting with them and then work your way that way, because they might be able to offer you some guidance, or like, oh, don't talk to them when they haven't had their coffee. Like there's some people who have these habits or routines that they have to go through. And so, for example, like for me, like I have to have my coffee before I can function. And so my household knows that. Um, I won't leave the house unless I actually have had coffee, but you wouldn't know that unless you start talking to people, and maybe don't tell them that you're from a community college. Don't start off with that. Just ask them about themselves or look up on their websites for their research. So do your homework ahead of time and find out what are they interested in or passionate about and start there. But if that doesn't work out, start connecting with other people. The other thing too, reality, don't force it. If someone doesn't want to be your mentor, like don't force it. Like, you don't want someone to like not want to mentor you. A lot of people ask me all the time, like, how can we be mentored by you? It just happens organically. It's not something that like, I mean, I'm not taking in applications. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to make that sound like weird, but just follow me on Instagram. Sometimes people like comment or whatever. It happens organically is what I'm trying to say. I'm not taking applications. I'm not for hire. I've had
It's
people like send me messages like, how much do you charge to mentor me? And I'm like, what? Like this, and I try to think about like, why are they asking this question? And I've had multiple people tell me this. I've gone to conferences like, all right, Elba, like, do I sell you or can I buy you something? And I'm like, wait a second, don't start off like that because it comes off very transactional and it starts to make me feel uncomfortable. And that's the last thing you want to do is someone who you're going to connect with, you start to see that they're being uncomfortable. So maybe not start off with like, can I buy you something or how
but
much, like, and yeah, go ahead, Hubin.
no, but Alba, the problem is that there's a lot of people out there that are charging for mentorship, and so I think that's the problem is that there is this whole capitalistic model of it that happens. And I think if you are ever having to pay to someone to mentor you, you would not want them to be your mentor because it's got to be someone that like you are willing to like go, there's a difference between mentors and there's a difference between sponsors. I don't consider myself a good mentor, but I'm a great sponsor because I would literally like if I want someone to succeed at something, I'll go through the wall and go out of the way to make sure that they're able to succeed. And so I think like but the problem is that there are people out there that are charging, and I think it's really unethical. But I'm not here to. I'm not. Why is my thing backwards? Um. Anyways, but and so like and so the problem is that there is a lot of there's a lot of I screwed it up. Anyways, there's a lot of people that are doing that, and so I think that's a problem. But also I think like there's a quote that I think it says is like don't tell people who you are, show them who you are. And so yeah, work hard, show up. You probably if you're doing research in a lab, you're most likely going to be with a graduate student or postdoc. The PI probably stops once a week in the lab, maybe twice a week for lab meetings. If you have journal clubs, make sure you read that journal backward and forward and research it and know it backwards and forward. Certainly something if they published. So and just show them. And at some point, like you gotta like, what they say, the loss, diminishing loss, a return. You're just not gonna be able to convince them, and that's okay. Like move on. But some people are just not gonna be keen to you, and that's their loss. Um, so yeah, that's their loss, and kind of just move on. Like you can't change people. Um, there's another good question that I saw. Oh, what is the single best advice you can give to a pre-med student? And what is the best piece of advice to a person as a whole?
Never give up. it's going to be a hard journey. Like, I'm not going to downplay and say, like, oh, it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, especially if you're a first gen like me. I have so many interests in a lot of different things. And I also didn't listen to some mentors early on in college who said, like, Elba, you belong in education. No, I'm going to go off and be an investigator. This is what I was going to be destined to do. And at some point, I feel like we tend to, I don't know. I think I still had to go through those experiences to realize that that's what I needed to do and see for myself. And they were right. Sometimes you need to be open to what some people say, and sometimes the feedback that you get, you have to not run away from it either. And it might be just opinions, but you have to also learn to decipher, like, is that just an opinion or is that actual, like, true feedback? And so that's something that you will start to learn and develop and figure out, and you'll just feel people's intentions and understand like where this is coming from because gosh, like I don't want to say this, but like sometimes people could just be straight up mean or they think that they know, but they don't know. And so that's why for you, like affirming who you are, knowing what you want to do, know what your goals are. For me, most of my career has not been telling people what to do. It's really like these types of talks and guiding them on to believe in themselves. And for me, the best part is when I see them affirm who they are without validation of that MCAT score or that science GPA or that acceptance, when they start to own it. And that for me is the most beautiful part in this whole process that keeps me going is when I actually see like that light bulb or that, like look in their eyes where they're like, I got this. And you start to see like they're walking with a new pep in their step. And that for me is what started it for me and why I feel like we need more people in education. So, and we definitely need more people who are in medical education, of course, to help guide people. So don't give up is what I'm trying to say. Know who you are, own your journey, and just keep going.
Um, so this is what are some alternatives to have a quick question when working on building a relationship in professional setting?
I just tell folks like don't start off with like I have a quick question because I hear it all the time and it's not it becomes like 90 minutes and it's not a quick question, especially for me that wants to make sure that I provide you with a well-rounded response. Just say like, do you have time to talk? Because it opens up that dialogue for them to say like yeah, and so that way you don't start to feel bad if they're going to miss a meeting or they're going to miss whatever, and it gives them the opportunity to share with you like yeah, I got 10 minutes. And so that can also tell you how much to gauge, and be able to ask your question. And so the other thing that I've noticed is that sometimes folks come to ask questions, but I hear, and I've been doing this for a long time, where I can tell the difference where like they're seeking validation. And you don't need anyone to validate what you're doing, period. Like, I don't know what else to say about that. And this is where I feel like some folks use it as a way to dream crush you. And I know we're being recorded, so it's gonna be somewhere on the wild web, but there are people out there who like that's what they like to do, is dream crush. So don't put yourself in those like situations. So this is why I gave you those foundational pieces, like know who you are, own your journey. These are your goals. And if you decide to change your mind, that's okay too. You're not
Yeah.
disappointing anyone.
Yeah, I would just say like being in a professional, relationship in a professional setting, don't do it on your first day there. I work in the ER and we get a lot of like volunteers and scribes. You have to be in an environment to know how it works. So don't do it on your first day because you don't know what the hell's going on. Like right when we have a code coming in, you would like ask him a question oh, like, or you ask him a question about a patient or something like that. And that's like the worst time. So I would just say it's easier. to show up and listen and be seen and not heard of. That's probably the best thing you could do. Also, the other thing is that this pisses people off more than anything. So if you're in a professional setting and you're in the ER or something like that, and you have your phone out there and you're on Instagram and you're texting and you're doing all that different stuff, or taking notes, you do not take notes on this. You take notes on something like this, not this. So if you're the kind of say, "Oh, I'm taking notes on my phone," don't, because they don't know what you're doing on your phone, and it's really disrespectful. The other part of it too is that technically, if you're in a hospital setting, you could take your phone taken away and dunked in water or something because you're not supposed to have cell phones in patient areas unless you're like a clinician. So I would say that's the worst thing you could do to people. To turn them off. So be in that situation, know when a downtime is. In clinical settings, and this is someone that works in the ER, it's not 24/7, but there are times that things escalate and there's a lot of downtime. And you being around and being seen and you are kind of like become part of like the background instead of like showing up the first day and trying to get everything answered. That's why like it takes time to build those types of relationships. But I would just say is just getting to know people like, hey, how was your weekend? Or um, just, talk about the weather or talk about what people are interested in. Like if you have an interesting patient, when it's a downtime, hey, why did that patient's potassium high and how does that, interact with that stuff? So there's a lot of research that you could do online as well. So but the thing is, one of the biggest ways you could build a relationship is people like to hear about themselves and what they're interested in. So if you get to know about the person and what they're doing, then that's probably a really good way to do it. And then also knowing like there's a saying like know when to fold them, know when to hold them. Like the worst thing you could do is ask a question in a really bad timing, um, because that's just like, and you'll know your professors like, if you show up to your organic chemistry lab, the first like 15-20 minutes, worst time you could talk to them because they're trying to set up the lab and trying to explain it and everything else, and like that's so that hey, I'm gonna wait until like you get started, and then I'll go and ask them. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Any other questions that you think we should bring up? Oh, there was a couple of them that I was um somebody just sent a thing to from Instagram, somebody from our social media team. Okay, this is a what are some of the mentee mentor etiquette do's and don'ts?
That's a good question. I would say, like, I'm gonna start off with the don'ts. Don't don't mistake people's friendliness for being your friend. And what I mean by this is there's still like just because I'm friendly and quirky and like people call me the Tia, that doesn't mean there isn't like a level of respect either. And I think that some people think like there's a line to cross. And there are certain things you don't ask. Like you wouldn't ask your tia or your aunt like how old she is or like how long she's been married or those types of things get real personal really quick. So don't ask like real personal things like that. At some point they might mention it as well too, and that's why for me I start off with like my husband. I have a almost 13-year-old, and so that's to also share the multiple roles that I have. But not everybody is like that. I try to keep my family life as personal as possible. Sometimes I will share a little bit, but not everybody's comfortable with those like answering those types of personal questions. And I think for me, I listen for tone of voice. So make sure that your tone of voice is coming off from a genuine place. So don't ask personal questions. Do practice these elevator pitches. Again, not to sound rehearsed like an actor or actress or, that you're performing. Um, but it's good to jot down some bullet points so that when you introduce folks, you know where to start. The other thing is follow up. I love to give people homework. Maybe it's because I'm an educator. I will assign you something, and it's also because I want you to put work into it. Like I'm not gonna, it's not the Matrix. I'm maybe dating myself here, but it's not the Matrix where I can plug in a flash drive to you and download everything that you need to know. You need to also put in some work to do these things. That's where I will homework assign you like, all right, I want you to talk to 5 representatives at the UC Davis conference and report back. Wait, 5? Anyone? Like, don't overthink it. Just 5 different representatives and go talk to them. And so part of that is to get you out there. I'm someone that also believes that doing is what's going to help you remember and to practice doing things, but not everybody's like that. I think the other do is follow up. There are so many times that folks say, like, oh, I'm going to send you my personal statement next week, and then they don't do it. I might be waiting. Like, okay, I have other folks that I'm mentoring too on the side because I do take on a small number of mentees outside of work, outside of my community college teaching to mentor them. And if I say, like, okay, when are you going to plan to send me your personal statement and you don't follow through, that's not that's representing that maybe you forgot or maybe this isn't as important, and then it comes to a point where maybe that mentor's time is not valued or you constantly keep changing the time that you're supposed to meet. So um of course things happen all the time, and I'm not saying that that's not the case, but if you're going to say you're going to do something, follow through or give them at least ample notice. Don't wait 5 minutes before you're supposed to meet, like, hey, is it okay if we reschedule? Like, if you already knew, you woke up already knowing if you're going to actually commit to that or not. So give them ample time because you never know that they might be waiting to, offer that time spot with someone else or to do something else. So be cognizant of people's time. I think that is our most valuable resource. Um, and I feel like people these days think it's something that we can just spend all the time, and we can't. I definitely don't like to be a gatekeeper of information, but I also love to sleep. I have a garden to attend to. I want to read and talk and play video games with my son, my sit down with my dogs, watch Star Wars, whatever we want to do. Be cognizant of people's time. And so hopefully that gives you just a little bit of what to do and what not to do.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, just don't be like disrespect. And this is something that this is a big pet peeve of mine is like don't be disrespectful of people's times, but also like, and this is a big pet peeve is that we tend to call women by their first names much faster than we do with men, which like if you're being mentored by someone who's earned their title, um, certainly in a professional setting, even if they tell you to call them by their first name, don't because it's a respect thing. And I know that I'm like predating myself, but don't do it. Like it's not, you don't know when is an appropriate time to do it, and you're gonna do it at a bad time, and it's just gonna be a bad reflection on them. That's just mine. How to be less awkward. Shoot, I'm awkward as it is. Like, I don't know. Another one is many people say my pre-health advisor told me to think about a plan B, thoughts and advice. Um,
And this is a question that a lot of folks get different opinions about. Like they don't want to hear that, or they think that they're trying to convince them otherwise. Um, Ask them why they're bringing up to have other options. I tell students all the time, like, look at all of your options. Like, it's like when I'm going to Yogurtland, I want to know what I walk first through and find out like what are the options right now? What's the monthly special? And then I want to go look at the toppings first. I want to understand like what am I getting myself into? I personally love chocolate, so that's my fault. Like I just go straight to that by default. And I feel like naturally that's what we tend to do, but you'd be really surprised and ask them like, why are you telling me this? Or why are you like, in a nice way, you could say like, I'm curious why you're telling me to get a second option. I've had folks who I've met and applied to podiatry and dentistry, or medical school and dental school, or, you know, PA and med school. So it's just like I'm seeing that trending, and I feel like folks maybe just want to give themselves extra options. But whatever the case is, for me, if I bring up options, it's not because I'm trying to change your mind. That's not my goal or my role either. But sometimes people who are bringing things up might see something or notice something that you're not seeing. And so this is where I tell folks like it's okay to affirm yourself, but also what I call like a growth mindset. You want to have a growth mindset or at least be open to hearing it out. I've had folks who I've seen like all of their activities, it was like all occupational therapy. So, of course, naturally, I'm going to say, like, have you considered applying to occupational therapy school? No, Elba, I'm going to be a physician. And I'm like, okay, like, the reason, and I explained, the reason I brought this up is because all 20 of your activities here say things related or connecting to that. You're going to ask me, where is that person right now? And they know who I'm talking about. They're almost done with their OTD program. So it's just, think about like, oh, I'm curious, why'd you bring that up? Or, and sometimes folks say, well, they told me to look at other options. I think it's okay if someone tells you to look at other options, of course, within reason, right? Think about their tone. Are they coming from a place of caring or not? That, you have to start to decipher those things too.
Yeah, I think I always say like you got to build your team. And so you got to have people in your life that are going to be your cheerleaders and they're going to cheer you on and they're going to build you up. Then you got to have some people that will tell you straight up, and the problem is what I found is a lot of pre-meds now shop to go listen to what they want to hear. And that's the worst thing that you could do because like they go shop around and say, "Oh, I want this person to be my mentor because of they tell me nice things or whatever." That's great, but that may not be like the best thing for you. It's kind of like, your doctor or your nutritionist or your physical trainer or whatever. Like you need to like put in the work, and if you're the kind of person that is not putting in the work, and if they're suggesting it to you, maybe they're coming from a good place to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. Not everyone's destined to be a doctor. Maybe this would be you'd be more interested in doing this. And so that is a possibility of it. But also what Miss Munoz said is that like ask them like why do you say that or why should I think about plan B? Because they may say, hey, I think you're a more hands-on person and you may be better at being a PA than to be like a physician where it requires a lot more studying and more detail and more, maybe something like that. And you'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. So like don't dismiss it. But if somebody is like, yes, you're never going to be a doctor, you suck, go become an accountant or something like that, then you'd be like, all right, dude, like take a hike. But like not all bad interaction. Like I wouldn't even consider it a bad interaction, but it's not affirming and it doesn't feel good, but you may sometimes have to eat your vegetables. Anyways, I'm actually at work, so and I don't think you have any other questions. I need to start work, so I need to get going. But thank you again for joining us. Please, can you just, when you get a chance, email me your presentation and say hi to Dr. Angulo for me?
I will do so. Thank you so much for